Thank you. I realized I was muted. um, what was I saying? I want to let everyone know that this talk is being recorded, and it'll be posted on Great Tree Zen Women's Temple YouTube site, which the link to that is in the chat, and you can also access it by searching Great Tree Zen Women's Temple in the YouTube search bar, and it's that first channel that comes up. So the Don Seido Wilkerson will be pinned, and so you won't come up in the video, and then we'll stop the recording for the Q&A. And then the other link in the chat right now is for the donation page for Great Tree to practice dana, and I'll read a brief statement about dana. In Buddhism, when Zen practitioners share their understanding of the teachings and practice, it is offered freely as a practice of dana paramita. Dana is a Pali word that means generosity or to give freely, and this practice is done without expectation of getting something in return. This is the spirit of speaking about the Dharma. Other ways to practice dana are to offer support to those who share the teachings, to support places of spiritual practice, and to give without judgment of expectation when opportunities arise. Those who share the teachings at Great Tree do so on a dana basis. Please support their practice by giving what you can. You can either do this directly or through Great Tree, and we will pass it on to them. So you can follow the link, and at the end of the hour, I'll share mailing address for Great Tree and for Seido-san as well, if you want to practice dana by sending in a check, or you can specify on the PayPal donation page that it's for Seido-san. And thank you. Pass it over to Anne.
Welcome, Seido-san. I have a short introduction here. Don Seido Wilkerson has practiced with the Charlotte Zen Meditation Society since 1990, which is over 30 years, and now leads the practice. He was ordained as a lay teacher by Teijo Munnich, the abbess of Great Tree Zen Temple. And that's very short. If you'd like to add something else before you begin your talk, an invitation to Buddha, please do.
Thank you very much, Anne and Ginjo. And thank you to everyone for being here and participating in this Dharma discussion series. I want to start by just saying just a little bit more about dana paramita, in that I want to express the gratitude of the Charlotte Zen Society for the fact that Great Tree has offered Zoom to us now for, a year, ever since the pandemic broke out. We were deer in headlights. We had no idea what we were going to do and how we were going to practice or anything. And it seems like just immediately Teijo-san and Chimyo-san offered Zoom to us. So we've been meeting every Sunday night for the whole year on Zoom using the Great Tree account. So that is a wonderful example of dana paramita. And I just wanted to say that, if you're inclined to want to support the Sangha, I would say please support Great Tree. I'm a lay person, and we have a very simple lay practice here in Charlotte. So fortunately, we're not in such a great need of financial support. So I would like to suggest that people support Great Tree. When I talked to Teijo-san originally, and she invited me to give a talk in this series, she informed me that the series would be about the teachings of Katagiri Roshi. And she mentioned the books, of course, from over the years that have been inspired by his lectures and his teachings. And of course, I'm a person who was not fortunate enough to have ever met Katagiri Roshi. So I feel like I've known him down through the years, mainly through Teijo-san and Shimyo-san and his writings. And it's, I mean, it's frankly a bit intimidating to give a Dharma talk based on some ideas that Katagiri Roshi talked about. But I came to this subject kind of serendipitously, to be honest, but I think it actually works because when I first considered a subject topic, I needed, of course, to get back to Teijo-san and let her know what it would be. And my first inclination was to want to speak on something that would help people in these difficult times with their Zen practice. You know, we've been in a pandemic now for about a year, and not to mention the other difficulties our society has been facing. And this is just added on to or overlaid in addition to all the other struggles we all have with our practice ordinarily. So Teijo-san first contacted me, and then she gave me a few days to choose a topic. And the way I came about this particular subject is I had scribbled a number of notes on the back of an envelope when Teijo-san and I were talking on the phone. And I got home later that day, and I took that envelope and I picked up The Light That Shines Through Infinity, because I knew that was one of the books that I might choose from. And I stuck the envelope kind of in the middle of the book. And then a couple of days later, Teijo-san, I guess she called me and she said, okay, I need your topic now. And it just so happened earlier that day, I had opened the book, and the page that I opened it to, pardon me for a little distraction here, but was page 113, which is in the middle of chapter 10 in The Light That Shines Through Infinity. And the first thing I read when I looked down was, when you greet someone, bow and make an effort to open yourself to the stream of basic energy. Invite that energy into your life. Then your life returns to Dharma and you become Buddha. And, you know, I realize you can do that with probably any of the writings of Katagiri, because pretty much anywhere you land in the middle of one of his talks, you're going to find something pretty deep. But I was moved by that. And so without reading the whole chapter, I told Teijo-san, yes, I'll talk on chapter 10, Invitation to Buddha. And so a few days went by before I actually sat down and started reading this. And I read the chapter through the first time. And my first impression was, you made a mistake. I read it and it's deep. And I thought, I am going to struggle with this. So over the last 2 or 3 weeks since then, I've read it now probably about 4 or 5 times. And I've really enjoyed it. I think the basic idea of what he's talking about is consistent with what I wanted to try and accomplish. You know, the title itself, Invitation to Buddha, I think suggests something that is helpful to me, and I hope it'll be helpful to other people. I think so often when we think about our lives and our practice, we think about people use the term spiritual journey and all sorts of ideas. And too often I think it has the feel, because words mean something. Words, how you refer to something and define it, makes a difference in how you understand it. And I think too often practice is thought of something kind of individual and something that you are doing. But I like this idea of invitation to Buddha, that our practice comes from somewhere other than just, a personal spiritual journey, so to speak. But at the very beginning of this chapter, Katagiri begins to talk about offering incense, which, I'm a lay person, and I'm sure a lot of people that will be listening are lay people. If you're a monk or a priest and you've gone through extensive training, I'm sure offering incense is something that you understand very deeply, and you understand the practice of it, and you do it a lot. And the training probably is very deep for offering incense. And it's just, for me, and I think for a lot of people, it's kind of a ceremony and a formality, and maybe we don't understand exactly how deep it goes. But Katagiri talks about this, and what I like about it is, what I was wanting to find is some kind of support for those of us practicing now. We're practicing through Zoom, which I find awkward, and I think probably a lot of people do. It's not what we've traditionally been used to. And so I felt like there were probably a lot of people struggling with their practice. I suppose looking for some kind of support. And so Katagiri talks about how offering incense, the practice of it, really is a complete practice. And he calls it inviting Buddha. And he says, in other words, invite the ultimate nature of your life into your everyday life. And he goes down and he talks about the verse that Adoshi offers when they offer incense at the altar. And I'll read it. And he said, and it goes, Sila Samadhi Vimoksha incense, radiant light of the Buddhas emits throughout the Dharma world. Homage to the countless Buddhas in the 10 directions, permeates into seeing and hearing and manifests nirvana. And then throughout the rest of the chapter, he breaks down those lines and tells you exactly what it means, which I'm not going to go into it in that much detail. But in his explanations, I found a lot of comfort, because he offers you the opportunity to see inviting Buddha into your life as something that you can invite the Buddha in. It's not, so to speak, your total responsibility to create your entire practice on your own, or of your own efforts. There is support in the universe. And he talks about a couple of things, and there's some Sanskrit and Japanese words in here, which I'm going to mention, but I'm going to try to also give you his explanations of how they work, because I think we're all trying to sort of bridge the gap between the inspiration of wanting to sit zazen, and the gap between that and what it takes to actually get you on your cushion and sitting. And maybe especially now in this age of pandemic and using Zoom and everything, maybe it's even more relevant to find the factors in your life that'll help you get to your cushion. So one of the first things he talks about, he says there's 5 different aspects. I mean, I guess we can think of them as aspects of your Buddha body, your Dharmakaya. And he talks about the first one is sila, which in parentheses, he says is precept, which is very interesting to me because in my Sangha and in my extended Sangha, I'm reading and studying 2 books on the precepts right now. We're studying Reb Anderson's book on being upright. We're also studying Shohakusan's book on living by vow. So every week I'm in a conversation about those 2 books. And in here, of course, precepts popped right up. But the thing I liked about what Katagiri says about precepts here, he uses it in a similar way that the other 2 authors do, but it is a little different. He talks about intuition. And I thought that was interesting. We all know that you don't follow the precepts so much quite so literally as you follow the spirit of them. And in order to take them as suggestions of how to live rather than as rules of what not to do, so to speak, you use your intuition because there is no real clear answer to most things. I think that's one of the things that's come up in discussion so many times. Precepts will just continually keep pointing back to you and what are you going to do? How are you going to respond to the circumstances and conditions that arise in your life? Not how would somebody else do it? How would the Buddha expect you to do it? It's how you're going to respond. So the first of these 5 components that he talks about is sila. And, to try and demystify it a little bit, he says that sila is kind of like the dynamic functioning of our lives as we watch it. As you sit on your cushion and you see all these things going on in your life, it's just the awareness of it and the realization of it, being aware of it, that helps you to continue your practice. The second of these 5 components is samadhi, which he calls total concentration. We're familiar with that, through doing our zazen, we sit quietly and focus. The third component is prajna, or wisdom, which is the Dharma teachings themselves and how we practice them, how we listen to Dharma talks, how we read and study, and then try to put them into effect in our lives. The next, the component is moksha, or liberation, and the final one is vamoksha, which is wisdom of liberation. So he's going to talk about he breaks each one of these down and talks about them. So I'm not going to talk too much about samadhi. In the Triple Treasures, I know 2 weeks ago, I think the Reverend Flom was talking a little bit about the Triple Treasures. So I was hoping to try and tune into every one of these discussions so I could have a little bit of continuity. And unfortunately, I had to work last week, so I wasn't able to hear Chimio-san's talk. But going back to the Triple Treasures, the samadhi part of it, the Buddha part of the Triple Treasures is when we sit zazen, just like we've done today. We sit for 30 minutes, and that is one leg of the Triple Treasures. The second leg being Dharma talk or discussion, which we're doing now. It's where we try to move a little bit outside of ourselves and move into the other people who are practicing among us in the Sangha, and discuss things that can help us. And then, of course, the last is the Sangha itself, the practice of pulling this all together so that it's not such a singular practice of just yourself only. I think I read something where it said, you're not able to become aware of your own Buddha nature until you become aware of the Buddha nature of others. Third part of this is prajna, which he calls the experience of the original nature of your existence. There's no learning prajna from a book or from a Dharma talk. It's just sitting down and being quiet enough to see what's going on in your own life. And I suppose also in your practice, seeing what's going on in the life of the people around you. Being able to let go of your own existence enough to see the practice in other people. The fourth component, moksha, which is emancipation or liberation. And he talks about this a little bit. It's, I think, the idea of when you're sitting and you let go of yourself, your own selfish, egotistical ideas, and you're open yourself up to other possibilities, you gradually begin to feel more liberated from your own, the limitations of your own thinking. But he talks about it, and I thought this was interesting because he talks about how, I know we've talked about it before in Dharma groups about not running from your delusions or running from your ignorance. In fact, he says, we have to see how we go astray, so constantly investigate your ignorance. Ask yourself, what is the cause of my going astray? This is researching the self. And we do this, I think, in our Zazen practice, but we also do it in our interactions with other people, whether it's the Sangha or just people at large. I think the precepts are a part of that. It's realizing not only your own delusions, but the delusions of other people. You can see how other people struggle. You can see how you struggle yourself. And it's only in really sitting down very quietly and noticing those struggles that you can begin to let go of things. The fifth component he talks about is, I guess it's vimoksha, I guess is how it's pronounced, or it's sort of the liberation of yourself when this happens, when you begin to see your delusions and let go of them. And I like how he suggests that this happens little by little, and you'll experience very small little liberations. You'll have a moment where you're kind of free from your ego for just a few minutes or a few moments. And he says that when that happens, that's not real freedom. So if you experience freedom, next you have to be free from freedom. You have to experience it, but then let go of it, of course. So those 5 components, I guess the reason I'm talking about them is because I'm hoping that we can, in our own life, we can find how those things are working in our life as a way of finding the inspiration to carry on in practice, even when things are difficult, even when it's awkward and things are not going well with the pandemic and trying to orchestrate this over Zoom rather than sitting together the way we usually do. And I hope that wasn't too obscure and too much philosophical stuff, and hopefully he made it clear enough. I wanted to go on, he talks about a few other things as the chapter goes by. He talks about there's sila incense and listening incense and giving incense, just different aspects of how we should appreciate being aware of inviting Buddha into our existence. Giving incense means that when you deal with something, you give yourself to it with a sincere heart. And, you know, obviously, just like the quote I started out with about bowing to someone and seeing their Buddha nature, obviously, offering incense at the altar is just, you know, one small little practice that we do that really is only a symbol of how we should be practicing throughout the day with every experience, everything that we encounter. When you drop off your mind and drop off your own personal experience and really touch the existence of whatever it is you're in front of. He also talks about something that I found interesting because it's, I think it's part of the support that I'm talking about, that I'm looking for to help people. He mentions radiant light of the Buddhas, and he talks about something that I think maybe a lot of us don't appreciate because it's maybe we've come up under a different cultural understanding, but he talks about your original nature is not dark. And he goes on to say it's not dark to be a human being, and it's not, you know, your ignorance is not something bad. And, you know, I think some of us raised in the West are kind of led to believe that we are a problem and we have to fix ourselves, or somebody else has to fix us, or something has to intervene. So I found it kind of uplifting to see that Kagiri takes us back to the idea that everybody has Buddha nature. You have it. It's not something you have to earn or gain or to have it given to you. It's something you just have to wake up to. Something that's obviously we know in Buddhism, but it's something that's, I think, helpful to remind us of what our true original nature is. Excuse me. I apologize. I had an alarm come on that I didn't expect. Sorry. So I just wanted to talk about a couple more things here. sort of where I just left off a moment ago, was about compassion. Remembering to bring compassion into your practice, and realizing that is always there. It's not something you have to cultivate. I mean, you cultivate it, but the compassion is there. You just have to recognize it and bring it into your life more, rather than trying to struggle to bring it in. Just allow it to come in. That's part of the invitation of Buddha. So towards the end of this chapter, he talks about the part where I actually started, where when you're greeting somebody, bow deeply to them, open yourself to them. And he talks about being one with that stream of energy that comes to you. He says, then your life returns to Dharma and you become Buddha. This is your everyday practice. You practice Dharma, the Dharma comes into you and you become Buddha. Simultaneously, you are a human being belonging to Sangha. That is the triple treasure of Buddhism: Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. He talks about that energy is pure energy, and it's always moving, always changing form, which I think is one of the things that makes practice both interesting and challenging, is that our practice changes on a day-to-day basis, just like this pandemic has changed it. And you still have to see the constantly moving energy and just stay in touch with it and follow it. He says, but if the source of being is energy, then there must be a way by which being may be manifested. So the source of being doesn't exist alone. It exists within a universal process, which is called Dharma, truth, or the ultimate principle of existence. And he says, when you open yourself and invite Buddha using your human body, Dharma comes into you and you become one with it. At that time, you are Sambhogakaya. Sambhogakaya is Dharmakaya manifested in your everyday life. So I hope somewhere in there was some things that were helpful as far as encouraging you to practice and find the support that you need for your practice in your everyday life. The things he was talking about are things that we already have, we already possess, they're in our lives. We just have to slow down enough, be quiet enough to see them and cultivate them. And I think that's, the idea I wanted to get across about bringing support into your practice now during these difficult times, is to find those things that are already there, rather than thinking of the practice as something that you have to reach outside of yourself for. And so I think I'm going to just talk about one other thing real quickly, and then I am going to open this up for questions or discussion. But the one thing I wanted to mention, because I saw on the schedule that I believe it's next Saturday on the 30th, the next speaker will be Meredith McIntosh, and she's going to speak on Alexander technique and body awareness. And so I just wanted to encourage everyone to try and be available for that and see that. I'm probably going to be working next weekend, so I'll miss it. But over the years, I've had the opportunity to be at a couple of retreats that Meredith was at, and she talked about body awareness, how to adjust your posture, and Zen being such a physical practice, it was a great help to me. And so I think you'll really get a lot out of that. So I would encourage you to tune in for that next week if you can. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Ann, and we'll have some question and answer and discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Seido-san.